Hey everyone, welcome back here. This is John. We're going to do my Ruger No.1 scope mount. We have a 4 to 12 power Vortex Crossfire 2 series here with a front parallax adjustment. And what we've done is we purchased a couple of setback scope rings that I can bring this scope back here on the top of the rifle to where my length of pull adjustment is a lot better for me, where I can actually see a full picture through the scope. It has always been set too forward for me, so I'm stretching my neck to see a full picture here in the front of the scope. But I went ahead and got my second ring, finally got it in the mail, and the ring is actually a 4BO scope ring assembly, and the height on it for the Ruger No.1 is a .937. So we've got one already mounted up here on the scope, as you see, and it was set in position, but the front ring I didn't have, and the normal ring set wouldn't fit in place. It was still just slightly too far forward on the bail at the end of the scope, so it wouldn't go in place. So I've ordered this one in, and we're going to set it up here on the Ruger No.1. And first thing we have to do is move down the front sight there out of the way, and we're going to set that scope up there and get it put in place. I'm probably going to go ahead and take all 4 screws out of this once I get the other bottom base in place and set in place here, and then put thread locker. Now, this is the blue thread locker, semi-permanent, and we'll be doing that on each one of the screws and torquing it down. I don't have a torque wrench, so I'm going to have to be really accurate and close as I can with the gap on the side of the scope back up in here to make sure I've got each one of them the same distance on the gap on both sides, and torque across, left back to right and right back to left, and make sure every one of them is snug down in there and you've got the proper gap here. Well, we're going to set it up here, and I'll get back with you in just a minute. Alright guys, what I've done is I've separated this front piece and set it in place, and I've hand tightened it here at the bottom. It's a little screw down piece on the other side there. You can tighten it with your hand initially. Just get it in place and get it snugged down. And now this one is snugged in place on this side. I'll show you if I can show you what I'm talking about. Little hand screws there, and then you hit it with a screwdriver at the end to get it completely tightened. I've just set it on there and put it in place, hand tightened it, and I'm going to put the top cap on. Something I did, may not mean a hill of beans, but it does to me. I used to build engines when I was quite a bit younger, and when I took this cap off, I made sure that it was in the exact spot, location, and not turned around like this, so that it would fit back in the way that Ruger assembled it. They're probably milled very much the same, but I want to make sure this sets in place here. Let's see if I can get it without... Well, that's awful tight there on the scope. There's a burr on that or what? Awful tight. See if I can get it running the scope here. Let me put the phone down, and then I'll get back with you in just a second. Alright guys, we just centered it on there best we could and lightly tapped it in with the bottom of my screwdriver set here, the what's it, outers, yeah, outer set. Just real light taps on it, and it went down into place. I got all 4 screws down in either side, and I did my best to make sure the gap was very even. So that's what we have on this side here. And then I'll turn it around and show you what I got over here. It's really pretty close. on both ends. But now that I've got them set in place and I tighten these down with my large flat grind screwdriver head, got these really snug. The base is onto the gun. And what I'm going to plan on doing next is taking the screws out one at a time and putting Loctite tight on it, excuse me, and put it right back in there really snug. I wish that I had a torque wrench, and I do not. But I'm going to put it back in place and snug it up, and with that semi-permanent Loctite it should stay in place. But this is the scope. It's a Vortex 4 to 12 by 40 field of view, and it's got the parallax adjustment out here on the end. I took the sunshade off of it. We'll probably install that on at the very end. But that's where it is now. It's set back. So this whole thing is moved back at least 3/4 of an inch, half 3/4 of an inch, to where I can get in here and put my round in. Just gives me a little more room. But more importantly, I got the eye relief from my shoulder so that this scope is back here closer to my eye, because I was really stretching it to get all the way up here to get a full field of view and no black around the side edges here on my scope. So I'm happy with it. We'll get it all Loctited in, and I don't really want to move it back much more, if any. I want to leave a little bit of room here. I don't like butting it right up against that. I don't know if it'll cause any damages on the turrets, but that's mighty close in my opinion, so I'm going to go with that. Okay, we're going to Loctite them down here, and then get back with you in just a minute. Alright guys, we got them all put back in with Loctite. And when you do that, just put it on the nose of the little screw, the bolt actually. You don't want a whole lot in there. Once it screws down, it travels up the threads. And get that into position and snug it down. Best to get yourself a torque wrench. I've always done it just by the strength of my hands, and hopefully it won't come loose on me. But we're going to probably install the sunshade here if I can get it put on. It's kind of finicky with the threads. Let's see if I can do it on camera. Yep, there we go. This scope's got that front parallax adjustment. This just keeps the sun, the glaring sun, if you were. Let's snug that down a little bit. Alright, got her on there. You had direct sunlight at you is what I'm saying. If you had direct sunlight on you, that it'll keep that glare off the end of the scope when you're trying to shoot out. The old 270 Winchester. Everybody loves it, except for those who don't, but I love it. Alright guys, we'll talk to you on the next video. You guys have a good one, and if we don't get back with you, have a Merry Christmas. That's my daughter there in the picture with her daughter. And we've lost her, so it's really hard on us at Christmas time, folks. Talk to you later.